I'm excited to share a little bit of my own backstory as to how I got here. So, for me, I'm the youngest of four, and I learned really well how to please other people so that they would be happy with me. I'm the youngest daughter, and I found that I got a lot of attention for saying yes and for making other people happy and for doing what was expected of me. One day when I was in my 20s, I found myself in my boyfriend's therapist's office, and he asked me what my problem was. And I told him I didn't know how to please my boyfriend and my family at the same time. His look at me when I said that made me realize something about me is off. I didn't know exactly what his eyes were saying, but it made me begin a path of self reflection as to how I was going about doing my life. That it was more about pleasing other people than it was about pleasing myself. And that began an internal journey and a spiritual journey that allows me to work with others, that has given me an opportunity to put together 20 years of tools of knowing how to be the me that I want to be, regardless of other people say yes to me. So, as you're listening to me talk today or the recording, I just ask you to ask yourself, are you making choices from guilt? Are you making choices from obligation? And are you okay with that? And what if there was another way? What if you could start to make choices that were based on who you are and what's important to you? In working with clients, it's one of the things I find is one of the greatest barriers to success is their not wanting to hurt someone else by making a choice that they don't agree with, and thinking that somebody else's opinion of them is truth or fact. And it's a really important process that I had to go through and that I walk my clients through of coming to understand that other people's approval does not have anything to do with you. It is about them. It is the filter that they look through. And that took me years to understand, especially when those people are family members. And I came from a place where we were all one and we were all to think alike. That didn't work for me because that thinking was not in alignment with who I was, with who I wanted to be. I tried their way and it kept me in a life that did not suit me. It was a life that did not honor my heart, my spirit, or who I believe I came here to be. So I had to walk away from a mold that I took on. And that's what I assist my clients with. And I always tell them that I know you would not have hired me if you could have done this yourself. That was true for me. If I could have done it myself, I absolutely would have. I was one of those people that thought I could do anything if I put my mind to it. And I tried lots of things. And for me, one of the gateways for me was my eating was one of them, and my relationship, my romantic relationships. Both of those got me in trouble. My eating was a mess, and my relationships with men were not in my highest good. And it was only when I reached out for help that both those things turned around, because I realized my best thinking got me to where I was. Nothing wrong with me. It just meant that I needed help. And for someone who's very independent, which I was, that is a very difficult step to take. So when you hear me and you hear perhaps you are somebody who is fiercely going at it alone and things are not changing, there is nothing wrong with you. And that was something that I had to come to terms with. There was nothing wrong with me. I needed help. The environment I grew up with did not offer me the tools or strategies that I needed to be who I wanted to be. Nothing wrong with those people. They worked for them. Those tools and strategies did not work for me. And so I had to reach out of my small world to be able to access a way of thinking, a way of being, and a way of believing that would take me to who I was to become. And it's a messy process. It is a messy process. I was talking to a client last night who I've worked with for a while, and she said, shouldn't I have figured this out already? And I said, no, you are just exactly where you're supposed to be. It is a process. It was not a straight line for me. I was very fortunate. In the beginning, I was extremely willing to do whatever anybody, as they say, I was as willing as the dying can be. I would do anything that my mentors told me to do, and that assisted me greatly. But it doesn't mean I didn't have my own internal challenges, dark days, because it's part of the process. I had to let go of the me I was to become the me I was to be. And I didn't know who that was going to be. As they say, you're in the hallway. There's that place from where you are to where you want to be. It's a hallway because you don't exactly know where you're going. You don't know which door it's going to be. And that was my experience. And I am grateful for my courage, my willingness. And that's what I tell you when you are listening and you've done things and you are continuing to do things. It is courage to keep moving forward, especially when you don't know how it's going to turn out. What I know is if you stay committed, stay willing, and open to possibilities, it cannot not change. And that for me has continued to be true. And I've been on this path for 30 years. I've been fortunate. I was fortunate. I was in my 20s when I started to get that this is not working for me. And I was willing to do what it took because I was in a lot of pain. And that's usually what I find when people reach out to me is they're in pain. Because when things are going along okay, we don't reach out usually. But when the pain gets significant, and for me, it was an internal pain of what I'm doing is not working. And so I really ask you to acknowledge and be willing to admit to yourself. And they say that admission is the most difficult thing to do. To admit to ourselves what we're doing is not getting us the results that we want. And that's the beginning of change. And it's an exciting path. And that's the other thing that I would say is there's that line that says, the unexamined life is the most uninteresting life. And the path within is the best journey that I have ever taken. And it will take you places you never thought that you could go. And that is my experience because I never saw myself as somebody who had a story. I was, as the youngest child, I was not the one who was speaking up. And so to have a voice and to share a voice and to know that my voice makes a difference to me has been an incredibly powerful experience. And I am filled with gratitude that I get to do what I do with my clients and that I get to speak about a message that I believe particularly women who are my market need to hear, that guilt and obligation are not your friend. And I invite you to be willing to step away from that. So I know that I'm coming towards the end of my time. And I want you to consider what it would be like without living from guilt and obligation and what your life could be like. So I've put together 3 strategies that will assist you to make that shift. And if you go to www.freebie.claudia-braun.com, you can download 3 strategies that will assist you to easily start making shifts. And I believe it starts with a shift. And that's when the stuff starts to change. So I thank you all for being here, for putting this together, for the power in bringing a collective voice together from all over this planet that we are privileged to be a part of at this time, which I believe is a huge transformation for all of us. So I'm extremely grateful to be part of it. Thank you.